Every year, as summer rolls in, the Opon festival comes back around. It's a really special time in Japanese culture, when families gather to honor their departed ancestors. People head back to their hometowns, bringing a deep sense of love and connection across generations. But amidst all that warmth and tradition, a dark story started to unfold at an elementary school in Tokyo. The main character is Chikako Ishikawa, a 29-year-old art teacher. She should have just. On the day of the holiday, everything seemed normal at school. But then the fate took an unexpected turn. That day, without a goodbye or warning, Chikako just vanished like it had disappeared into thin air, leaving the campus without a trace. What was supposed to be a time for coming together and remembering our ancestors turned into the beginning of a strange and mysterious disappearance. You're watching the True Crime Channel, where we explore the most intriguing cases and thrilling stories together. Alright, here's the translation. First off, as usual, before we dive into the mysteries of today's case, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to support us. Thanks a ton. It was a Tuesday, May 15, 1978. Tokyo was sweltering in the summer heat. The Opon festival and summer break lined up together, making the city feel a bit slower than usual. But Nakagawa Elementary School in the Aidachi district had its pool open, which kept the schoolyard buzzing with activity. And that's what led to. The teachers had to take turns supervising during the break. That day was also payday, which seemed pretty normal, but then something unexpected happened that suddenly made the atmosphere at the school really tense. Art teacher Chicako Ichikawa was missing. She was a young teacher who had only been at the school for a little over a year, always serious and dedicated to her work, and she had never taken a day off. But on that day, she suddenly went off the grid, and the principal felt a wave of unease. He immediately called her apartment. "She's from Chicago, but no one is looking for you." Worried that it might be because of the holiday, he reached out to her family all the way in Hokkaido. But the response from her family made things even more concerning. Chikako wasn't going home and had already informed her family that she wouldn't be coming back for the holidays. At first, everyone thought she had an urgent matter to take care of, but then she continued to miss her shifts on the 22nd and 23rd. A bad feeling started creeping into the minds of those around her. And finally, on the 24th, a worried mom from Chicago traveled over 800 kilometers from Hokkaido to Tokyo to report her daughter missing at the Odaki police station. Her daughter had just turned 29 and was born in Otaru, Hokkaido. She had 2 younger brothers and had recently graduated from Hokkaido University of Education. A year before this happened, she had moved to Tokyo by herself to teach at Nakagawa Private School in the Yachi district. Odaki is in the northern part of Tokyo and used to have affordable rent back then. That's the point. It's perfect for young teachers just starting out like Chikako. Plus, it's a place that really focuses on education, with plenty of public schools, creating job opportunities for young people who have big dreams and a passion for teaching. So, that's how Chikako started living on her own in Tokyo. She rented a small apartment in Odaki and gradually settled into her new life. Chikako is a gentle and polite person who's always dedicated to her work. She gets along well with her colleagues at school and is also well liked by the students. The students really cherished her. That summer, the Tokyo Teachers Support Group organized a 2-week trip and training session in Europe. The trip left Tokyo at the end of July and came back on August 12. Chikako signed up to join the trip as well. During her journey, she broadened her horizons and experienced many new cultures. When she returned to Tokyo, Chikako called home to let her family know that the school was opening the pool in August, so the teachers would have to take turns supervising. So, during the OP holiday this year, she's not coming home. On February 14, just after getting back from Europe, it was her turn to do duty at school. Around 4:30 p.m., while patrolling the halls, the school security guard, Mr. Shinya Wada, happened to run into Chiko. At that moment, everything seemed normal with her, nothing suspicious, but that was the last time anyone saw her. The strange case of Chiko's disappearance made Shinya Wada a key witness since he was the last person to see her before she went missing. 2 weeks later, Chikako's dad arrived in Tokyo from Hokkaido. He and the teachers at the school organized a thorough search around the campus and the area near his daughter's apartment. The search team included Shinya, the security guard who last saw Chikako. Chikako's room was still tidy as ever, with no signs of a struggle or anything out of place. It felt like they were hitting a dead end with no leads in sight. Time kept slipping by, and the search wasn't turning up any results. 6 months later, the father returned to Tokyo. This time, He was there to collect his daughter's personal belongings. He held on to a tiny hope that one day they would be reunited. But 4 years later, he passed away from stomach cancer. Until the very end, he never found out where his daughter was or what had happened to her. In November 1987, 9 years after the Chicago disappearance, a major incident shook the world, a Korean air flight explosion. Flight 85 was headed from Iraq to the South Korean capital, Seoul. While flying over the waters near Myanmar, the plane suddenly exploded in mid-air, killing all 115 passengers and crew on board. This tragedy uncovered a dark conspiracy. The hijacking was carried out by North Korean agents. 2 suspects were identified, one named Kim Han and the other Kim Chung-in. They used fake passports claiming to be Japanese citizens to board the flight. They planted a timed bomb disguised as a radio on the plane and landed at the Atabi layover point. Then they fled to Bahrain, a country in the Middle East. Right there, at Bahrain airport, they were arrested. In a desperate attempt to end their lives, they swallowed poison to erase their tracks. Kim Jung-yin died, but Kim Han-hai was saved. Later, she revealed a shocking plan. North Korea had carried out a series of kidnappings of Japanese citizens. This information immediately made waves in Japan. Back then, North Korea was regularly carrying out espionage activities, so their spies needed to speak fluent Japanese and understand Japanese culture. They even kidnapped Japanese people to train them as teachers. That's how the wave of abductions of Japanese people started in the 1970s and 80s. Kim Hai said her Japanese was taught by a Japanese person named Lahai, but later it turned out her real name was Taguchi Jiko. In 1978, a Japanese woman named Takeguchi Jiko went missing. Coincidentally, that was also the year that Chikako Ishikawa, an art teacher from Tokyo, mysteriously disappeared. Both she and the other person were in their late teens when it happened. Because of the overlap in timing and age, the Japanese police, after years of being unable to solve Chicago's case, started to suspect that she might have been a victim of abductions carried out by North Korea. In 2003, Chicago was added to a special missing persons list, which includes Japanese citizens who may have been kidnapped by North Korea. This news broke. It sparked new hope for her family. If she really was kidnapped, then maybe Chikako was still alive. But that hope quickly shattered. A year later, in the summer of 2004, 26 years after Chikako went missing, a man suddenly showed up at the Adaki police station. No one expected that it was Shinya Wada, a former security guard at Nakagawa School, who was the last person to see Chikako before she disappeared. At that time, he was 68 years old, and his confession turned the entire case in a shocking new direction. Totally different. Shinja admitted he was the one who took Chikago's life 26 years ago. At the time of the incident, he was only 42, living with his wife in a 2-story wooden house not far from where he worked. According to Shinja's testimony from that fateful afternoon, he was patrolling like usual when he crossed paths with Chikako, who was on duty at the school. When they passed each other, they accidentally bumped into each other. Chikako reacted pretty aggressively, swinging his backpack at Shinja because he thought he meant to provoke him. "Now you're messing with me." Caught off guard and a bit angry, Sin instinctively reacted by pushing her down to the ground. Shinya shared that he used to get bullied by teachers, and the fear that Chikako would tell on him could cost him his job and ruin his reputation. This fear drove him to make a brutal decision. He practically choked Chikako until she showed no signs of life. That night, he drove her back to his place, which wasn't far from the school. Sin mentioned that it took him about 4. He used a clock to take off the tatami mats from the floor and dug a small hole beneath the area where the traditional heater was. He buried Chikako along with all her personal belongings in the hole, covered it up, and tried to put the room back to normal as if nothing had happened. Since that day, Xia's mindset started to change. He became extremely paranoid, always feeling like the people around him were looking at him with strange eyes. Every time someone new visited the school, he would start to panic. He thought the police had tracked him down and were coming for him. Gradually, he cut ties with the neighbors, isolating himself like a shadow, living in constant fear and haunting anxiety. Whenever he saw the neighborhood kids playing near his house, he would often fly into a rage and yell at them for no reason. To ease his guilty conscience, Shinja bought books on hypnosis, hoping to self-hypnotize and erase the sins of his past. What's even scarier is that for over 20 years, his wife lived with him in that house without knowing anything. She didn't know a thing. She went about her daily life as usual, while that horrifying secret was just lying under the floor they walked on every day. But what really outraged people was that Wada only turned himself in not out of remorse or guilt. In fact, 10 years ago when he turned himself in, the Adaki area where he lived was already marked for urban redevelopment, and he and his wife were told they had to tear down their house. Back then, Shia strongly opposed it, insisting that he and his wife were used to living there and didn't want to move. Right after that, Sia started turning the house into a fortress that nobody could get into. He put up a 2-meter-tall iron gate at the entrance, covered the whole place with steel sheets, built high brick walls, topped with barbed wire, and set up infrared cameras for security inside and out. No one was allowed in the house except for his wife. Later on, for some unknown reason, he even started restricting her from going out. He took care of all the shopping himself. The neighbor thought he lived alone, but day by day, he couldn't avoid having to move out. That's when he realized something important: once the house was torn down, the horrible secret under the floor would be revealed. After many sleepless nights, he decided to turn himself in. Soon after, the police came to search the old house in Adaki. According to Chinya's testimony, the police dug about a meter down beneath the traditional kodachu fireplace. There, they found 2 skeletons. Chicako Ichikawa was wrapped in a layer of waterproof fabric. On top of that, the police found her credit cards, purse, cosmetics, and personal items. So, after over 20 years of waiting, Chikako's family finally got news about her. But it was devastating news. In deep sorrow, they buried Chikako next to her late father, who had passed away longing and hopelessly searching for his daughter. Chikako had returned to her beloved father, but by then, she was just a shell of who she once was. But the doubt in the hearts of her loved ones still lingers. Chikako's younger brother shared that she was a kind person and had never seen her raise her voice or argue with anyone. He believes that all of the statements from their dad are just lies to lessen the blame. Shinya Wada's attitude afterward also enraged the Chikako family. When facing the media, he showed no remorse and even threatened to sue them back. His arrogance stems from a harsh reality. The Chicago murder happened back in 1978. Under Japanese law at that time, the statute of limitations for murder was 25 years. This means that by 2003, which is a year before Shinya Wada turned himself in, the time limit for prosecuting murder had expired under Japan's laws back then. So even if there was solid evidence against him, the law couldn't do anything to prosecute him. However, the victim's family couldn't accept that outcome. They decided to pursue the case. There's an effort to seek justice for Chicago through civil means. In 2005, the case went to trial in a Tokyo district court, where the victim's family sued Shinya Wada for serious personal injury. Specifically, they charged him with murder and demanded 180 million yen, which is about $1.2 million. However, civil law has a statute of limitations. If it's been 20 years since the wrongful act occurred, the right to claim compensation goes away. The incident happened back in 1978, so by 1998, the statute of limitations had run out. Given this situation, the victim's family argued that the real damage was the years of emotional pain caused by Chicago's remains being found. They believed the timeline for filing charges should start from when Chicago was discovered. The lower court partially agreed and ruled that Shinya had to pay 3.3 million yen, which is about $20,000. However, the girl's family was not satisfied with this outcome and continued to appeal to the Tokyo High Court. 2 years later, in 2007, the appeals court was reopened, and the higher court said that hiding the body meant the victim's family couldn't know about their loved one's passing, which just dragged out their emotional hurt for over 2 decades. So, you can't really separate the act of the murder from the covering up when it comes to judgment. They believe that those 2 actions are closely linked, and if you separate them, it would be unfair to the victim's family. In the end, the Tokyo Higher Court ruled that Shinya Wada has to pay 42.5 million yen in damages. About $280,000. This is the first case in modern Japanese history where both the statute of limitations for criminal prosecution and civil lawsuits have expired, yet the victim's family still won their civil case against the perpetrator. The guy has a big compensation amount from relocating his home and his pension, so the judgment doesn't hit him financially too hard. However, before the civil case went to trial, he divorced his wife. Many believe it was just a divorce. He's trying to move some assets under ex's name to his wife to avoid seizing them. Even though the truth hasn't been confirmed, this shady move has outraged the public and shows that he hasn't really felt any remorse, hurt the Chicago family once again. After losing the lawsuit, X decided to relocate to a quiet area in Minami Boso, Chiba, surrounded by farmland. His house has a garden but is enclosed by a tall fence and barbed wire. The place seems more like a prison with all the extra security cameras. In 2023, someone tried to check in on Sa and waited at his house for over an hour but never saw him show up. According to the neighbors, he disappeared 3 years ago, and no one knows where he is now. Maybe the statute of limitations helped Shinya Wada avoid prison, but the fear inside him, especially the haunting from his crimes, seems like it never really goes away. You can feel it in the air. A shadow that never leaves keeps him from ever finding peace in his life. So, the case today has come to an end. What do you think about Shinya crimes? Leave your thoughts in the comments so we can discuss. And before you go, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of the next classic cases on the True Crime channel.